So this is Friday morning, and I normally feel quite gloomy on a Friday, but thank God Pat McCart has got across the border. Pat, do you think there's any chance of us getting a grant for cross-border activity?
Yeah, well, everybody else gets one. I don't see why we can't serve for imbuing the nation's good health and
Ah,
cross-border
that's right.
communication and cooperation. In
Entertainment
other
and
words, it starts with C.
entertainment, instruction, and what was the
Anything
other one?
else? Whether
I
could be
will do more
applied
good.
could be applied to the EU.
Oh yeah, they might be more open to us. All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Anyway, we have some important business to transact here. We're going to keep it as compressed as we can because we know both our viewers don't like long videos. They
yes,
like
both of them.
short
Yeah,
videos.
yeah,
Okay.
yes, yes, yes.
So the first one in the paper that caught my eye, well, it's in several of the papers. I noticed it in the Irish Times and the Guardian, both, was this police ombudsman report that has been
Yeah, it's
made
out today. Yeah,
about the troubles. And in it, she says that the family concerns about collusive activity, she calls it,
yeah.
are legitimate and justified. Um, she says, for example, the RUC and the UDR were involved in some cases in the deaths of loved ones. And one of the cases she brings, mentions is that of Eddie Fullerton in
Yeah.
1991. Do you remember that one, Pat?
I remember it very, very well, Jude. In fact, this was the era before mobile phones, and about 4:30 in the morning, it just shows you what was in our house. The landline downstairs rang, and that was always bad news when the landline rang. And Rosie got up and went down, my wife, and answered the phone. It was Mark McFadden, who's now UTV, but he was a Derry Journal reporter, and he says, Rosie, go and get Pat. He says, Eddie Fullerton's just been murdered. So Jude, you tend to remember phone calls like that, and there they are. Now, the thing about it was Eddie Fullerton had got death threats sometime before. In fact, he'd come into the Journal with a Christmas card, something along the lines, dude, I'm making this up, but something along the lines, this will be your last Christmas or something like that. No, he'd got, a threat. So, but nobody ever thought they would cross the border and so on. But Jude, the rumors afterwards were, or talk that the house had been taken over. The whole operation suggested like that it was very slick, that there was a boat across the foil. Police were RUC were seen down at Culmore, where apparently there was claims that there was. But by the way, Jude, the boys involved in the killing would have had to cross an army on the main road. There were all sorts of patrols, and they seem to have got straight across, no bother. One other thing, Jude, it's worth pointing out. At that time, we sent a reporter over to interview a certain, we'll call it a loyalist spokesman. That's the safest way of putting this.
Yeah.
And then when the reporter went over, on the wall, he saw very, photographs of ordinary people in places like Craigan and the Bogside, suspected IRA man. These were security files, by the British Army and RUC, and this guy had them up on his wall. So the level of collusion was quite high. But the other thing is, well, Jude, I take it you know more about this than I do, but like I take it this collusion thing is to deal with a lot of, and there was the Castle Rock murders. There was the ones out at
Greysteel.
Greysteel. I got a senior moment there. I couldn't remember. Greysteel. The one where Hume really got
down afterwards at the funeral.
Yeah. And the killings, I think, in Coleraine and Kilray. So
yes.
Like there were, and Jude, I think one of the big things, I read just a wee bit about the report. A lot of policemen refused to talk to the ombudsman or ombudsperson, whatever you like to call her these days, and a lot of waters flowed under the bridge. Jude, I suppose that what I'm trying to say is, back then there was considerable disquiet in national circles that there was a lot of collusion. I would wonder at this stage how much they can actually prove.
Well, they'll not prove anything if Brandon Lewis has his way, because he's for ending all legacy investigations.
Yeah,
if he possibly can. I thought the report was certainly brought some comfort to those people those families that have, like Fullerton's family, who have been campaigning for years about this question of collusion and the death of their loved ones. There's reports in her report of files on informers being destroyed of the RUC special branch not passing on information to the police or the RUC, the regular RUC. There's talk of informants being recruited and handled while they were involved in crime, including murder. And that there was no sign that the RUC special branch had responded to Gardaí requests for information in terms of things like that, the death of Eddie Fullerton. And I thought you hung back a little bit from saying it was systemic. She seemed to say there was a lot of cases of it, but that it wasn't systemic. I don't know. There seems to be so many of them, and as you say, very dodgy sort of things happening, which shouldn't have happened if law and order was enforced.
Jude, after Greysteel, there was all sorts of things that the guys got away in a car, which was found burned out, and it took 2 days for the cops to come and sort of examine it. I remember hearing all sorts of stories. And have you read Anne Cadwaller's book, Lethal Allies? And Jude, some of the stuff she threw up, things like 4 men in a car, obviously dirt on their trousers, and let go through a checkpoint. They said they had been at a pub or something, and it was quite obvious they'd been lying on a ditch somewhere. And these were loyalists, and stuff like that. You sort of go. By the way, I think no matter what anybody says, and I think it's been the can in regard to collusion has been kicked down the road for so long that I don't think you'll ever be able to prove it. But hey, you talk to anybody in the old nationalist community of, say, in the 1990s, they firmly believed that the RUC and Loyalists and the UDR and the whole lot of them were up to their eyeballs on it, and nothing will change anybody's mind.
Yeah, God help those poor people that are suffering, families and people hoping to get the truth, let alone justice, as to what happened to their loved ones. You almost throw up your hands in despair. Brandon Lewis, as I say, is busily making sure that all legacy investigations are ended. Now, you can see how some people might say, well, there's no point in keeping raking over the past. But you know bloody well that the reason he wants that is to avoid the further implication of the state forces.
Jude, it's not for the good of the nationalist people or anybody else. It's to stop the British forces being held accountable, and everybody knows that.
That's right. Just a sort of a side note, I noticed that I was looking up at Drew Harris, the present Garda commissioner. I was looking up his history, and one of the things that he was involved with, along with the woman, I'm not sure what her name, something like Una Gillespie, one of the assistant chief constables.
Judith Gillespie, I think it was her name.
Judith Gillespie, correct. One of the things that they would give seminars on to the RUC, and he was involved with a crossover to the PSNI as well, were seminars on maintaining the reputation of the RUC. That is the positive face of the RUC. So when you hear of files being destroyed, when you hear of informers being recruited who are involved in murder, and you hear then that the emphasis is on.
I would, Jude, if you want to go back, the Stevens inquiry, they had a hut with all information somewhere in I can't remember, one of the army grounds, and it was burned down. It's like, so like, Jude, no matter what any commissioner at this stage, the evidence of was pretty much out there. Like, it's proven it now, Jude. It's, as I said earlier, the can's been kicked down the road deliberately, so in my opinion, for so long, and a lot of apparently quite a few of the policemen refused to cooperate with her. She can do findings, but the reality is, Jude, and I am stating it publicly, I believe it was up to their eyeballs, and there was so much stuff back in the day. I can't even remember some of the details now, but I remember hearing stories at the time of shoddy investigations, and informants telling them what was going to happen. I remember so many stories at Eddie Fullerton about cops being seen down the night of Eddie's down in Culmore, a boat going across, all this sort of stuff. I don't know how much of it's true, but it seemed at the time that a lot of stuff was just deliberately, mishandled, and Jude, there was no doubt about it. The RUC were up to their eyeballs inside the UDA and UFF. They had informants, and they were riddled with it.
Yeah, I suppose while you might not hope for the truth or justice, I suppose if people keep that in their minds so that they realize what kind of a conflict it was. It wasn't a good guys
It
and
was a
bad
dirty
guys.
war, Jude.
Oh, dirty, dirty something. Okay, something equally dirty almost is our next story. God, this is really cheerful for a Friday morning. But you can't avoid it. Like, Irish Examiner was the one that I was reading, and of course it was on the news, RT News. Aisling Murphy, young woman, musician, for teaching P1, teaching those little kids, 5, 6-year-olds who are coming in. And she was out for a jog after school in broad daylight. And somebody comes along and kills her.
Yeah, and they thought they had, I presume they thought they had the suspect, a guy, a 40-year-old man arrested. And it turns out now, or seemingly, that he came on the scene and was trying to help her, and it was misinterpreted what he was trying to do. And the person, that's how it seems. And it now possibly that the main culprit has got to clean away. Now, I don't know whether that's true, but that seems to be what, from what I can read this morning. Now, the 40-year-old man has been released and said he's no longer a suspect.
That's correct. And in fact, they had to bring him to safe accommodation that night when they released him because of social media comments and images that were put up. They felt that his life might have even been at risk from people. This sort of mob can, but mentality. The thing is, the police arrested. I hate to say it, but the cops arrested him in part, I'm sure, because of a huge pressure on them to come up with somebody responsible for this. You couldn't just leave that hanging and say, "Oh, we don't know who did it," or "We're trying to find out." If they could get somebody quickly, they would look an awful lot better than if they took months at it, or maybe longer, or never, for that matter. Dear. I suppose it's the fact she's such a good-looking young woman. She's so talented.
She was so talented, and her life was ahead of her. But Jude, as well,
23 years of age.
Yeah, Jude. I think, and I've listened to women on this, and there is an issue, Jude. Like, there was a young girl being interviewed in RT yesterday, and she says, do we have to look or keep looking back all the time? She's now when we go out, Jude, women get frightened. Like you would think a woman jogging on a public path where plenty of people go would be safe, but she got murdered on broad, as you said, broad daylight. There's a I don't know. If I had a young daughter, I think I would be very nervous.
It is sort of shocking, but they say that women shouldn't be called on to do something to avoid dark places or whatever. I partly agree with that. Partly agree with it. Only partly, though. The fact is that women are these people are doing these appalling things to women because women are physically weaker than them, than a man. So I mean, I suppose the legal system could inflict really serious penalties on people who do this kind of thing. I mean, serious penalties. In prison. I also think women should almost, if it was my daughter who was living in that area, I would tell her to bring a rape alarm whistle or whatever with her at all times. I'd even encourage women to have, I think women should be given the option of getting, if they want, free pepper spray. And carry on with them when they're in circumstances like that.
Well, for years I walked. It's called Inch Level. It's it's around a sort of an island type thing, and it's about a 5-6 mile walk. And but there's parts of it wooded. And my wife said the other day, she says, "Pat, I wouldn't walk there on my own anymore." And it's safe. There's usually plenty of people around, but there's always going to be a day maybe there isn't. And there are, and woods, there's places people sort of can. It's not a big wood, exaggerating a bit, but there are parts of it that are wooded. And like it's a public space, but it must be very frightening if you're a woman and you're walking alone and you hear a strange noise. You shouldn't feel threatened all the time. That's a horrible thing.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's claim we're a civilized society. Go on. and it happens is because women are physically weaker. But tell me this, do you think that men who do this, because there was another case, that part where she was running was called Fiona's Way or something?
Fiona Pender, who had been murdered as well, or disappeared.
In the same area? In the same area, was it?
Yeah. There was no doubt about it. There was a serial killer in Ireland, and I would say it's possibly the same guy. But in the 1990s, early 2000s, 4 or 5 women just disappeared. And I don't know whether he died or whatever, but they stopped for about 20 years, so, but around then there was 4 or 5 women disappeared. There's if I remember correctly, a woman called Anna McCarrick. She was American. She went for a walk somewhere in Wicklow and she disappeared. There was a girl called, I think, Fiona Jacobs. She was actually at college in London with my son at the time. She disappeared. I'm just remembering them off the top of my head. But Jude, it's not nice.
Well, tell us, would such people be right in the head?
Not, Jude, they couldn't be. There's something seriously wrong. That if you
well, then it's a mental health issue. It's a mental health issue, and that kid.
Well, Jude, I would seriously question if you can attack somebody on broad daylight at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a January day on a public path. There's something seriously wrong with you.
I wonder, was it an attempted rape?
God knows, Jude. I really don't know. They're not saying anything.
I think
the only thing they're saying is they're looking for this distinctive bike, apparently yellow handlebars or something. Now I don't know what the connection that is, Jude. But anyway, Jude, I heard yesterday. I was listening to the RT radio news. The whole Tullamore community is in shock. They really are. And they don't know what the hell. And as well as that, now the fact that the man's released, I'd say it's frightening the hell out of people there. There's a murderer loose in this town.
Oh dear. Well, he wouldn't have to be in that town. I mean,
no, he wouldn't have to. But there's a murderer loose in this area.
Okay, well, we'll leave that. Sad. As I say, I think these people can't be right in the head. But then, if they're talking about the police catching them, and if they're talking about, I'm saying, put them in a prison for a long time, that's saying they're actually responsible for their actions, not that they're suffering from some mental.
Well, did you know the fine? Were they mad or were they bad? Who knows? I don't know. There's a lot of these days, a lot of sort of excuses for people. You're suffering from this syndrome or that syndrome. Or no, years ago, it said, look, like Jude, I always think if you're smart enough to run away, you've done something wrong.
True enough. That's a rough and ready calculator.
Yeah,
right?
I know, but
it makes sense. It makes sense, Pat, I have to say. Okay, final topic today. We move to first of all to our monarch, our head of state, not your state, our state, Queen Elizabeth II. Her son, Prince Andrew, has had to send back his many titles, including he no longer has the right to be called Your Highness.
Yes.
And you think that's a good thing?
Jude, I was watching, a strange thing. My wife is big into, by the way, that's about the third time I've mentioned my wife, but I better be mentioned. She's big into watching the
You must be listening to you.
So I come up a couple of times and she was watching The Crown and I sat down and I had no intention of watching it, and it actually turns out to be a absolutely brilliant program.
Oh, brilliant. I love it.
I was watching the other night when there was this is on Netflix, so you can watch them anytime you want. But anyway, we turned on the one where Mountbatten and the guy who was in charge of the Daily Mirror organized a coup, or were considering organizing a coup against, and the Queen put a stop to it and all the rest of it. And anyway, I was sitting watching the last night, and it's this whole thing about Boris Johnson and the Queen. And anyway, right, here's where I'm coming at. The Queen, to stop reputational damage to the Crown, has stripped Andrew, because I presume she had to make that decision, of his HRH titles, and he's had to hand back all these military honors and medals and all the rest of it. And she's slapped down after the court decision in America this week. Contrast her reaction and actions with the Tory party. Boris Johnson, Jude, if he was in any other position, with so many people dying, and he hosting a party, and he said he thought it was a works do. Jude, bring your own beer, bring your own booze. And they were out sitting out, and they were eating and they were drinking, and he said it was a works occasion. Jude, like, how insulting to anyone's intelligence is that? And he's still Prime Minister, and I heard, what do you call him? I always consider him like a cartoon character. What do you call him? Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg on Newsnight the other night. And Jude, I thought, you pompous prick, you know, the arrogance of coming on and sort of suggesting you don't really know what you're talking about. The Prime Minister deserves our respect, and you're going, like, are you taking us for clowns? You know, I was watching it, Jude, and I'm not even a British subject. I'm not anything to do. I live in the free part of the world.
The fact that I live in this part doesn't mean I'm a British subject either. You're right to choose your nationality.
I was sitting watching and I was thinking, how arrogant, how pompous, and all. And I just thought to myself, and the Tory party has no shame, absolutely no shame.
Here's a couple of things I put in, Pat, which maybe was a slightly different twist on it. The thought that struck me was, he's sending back all this stuff. I don't think myself, maybe I'm wrong, but I suspect that it is the apparatus, the structure around the Queen Elizabeth that is making those decisions. You know, maybe she's got
the final decision.
But she's 95. I mean, we do want to be, you know, day-to-day stuff, or even a crisis like that. And besides, I gather they all say that he's her favorite. But anyway,
yeah, so they say.
My point is this: this is the 21st century, right?
Yeah.
What in the name of God is anybody going around being referred to as Your Highness? Your Highness. Have you heard about that?
There?
Yeah, have you heard about that from you know, the Ming dynasty in China? You know, 5,000 years ago, you would say, "Oh, ridiculous nonsense." But there they are, all these medals he got. I mean, he talks about having seen action in the Falklands. He was
after which he couldn't sweat.
He was in a helicopter, for God's sake. Anyway, I just think that whole thing of the trappings being sent back magnifies their importance, because I think they're absurd, absolutely absurd in the first place. The second thing I think is, with regard to Andrew now, I mean, I don't like the guy, never have, but where did innocent until proved guilty go?
Yeah, there's an element of truth there. But I think that the thing about it is, Jude, a couple of courts have now decided, look, he's got a case to answer. Ghislaine Maxwell has been convicted. Epstein committed suicide. So there's more than a sort of, what do you call that? There's a term for, you know, there's at least a case to answer. There's a legal term for that.
Fair enough.
Prima facie. There's a prima facie case.
But at the same time, like, if a man was arrested, well, we saw that in the case of Ashley Murphy. If a person was arrested and you were going to charge him, that doesn't mean that he's guilty.
No.
We know from Britain over the years that there's people who've been in jail for 15, 20 years. There's no one guilty.
Yeah. No, but I thought it was, the point I think I was trying to make was the difference in reaction between the Crown and the government. You know, one seems to have old-fashioned values, whether you agree with them or not, or you even agree with their motivation. But at least they're showing the semblance or the optics of what is the right thing to do, and the other one's just shameless.
But Pat, you're a seasoned journalist. Yeah. You don't surely think that the Tories act in terms of what's right and wrong.
No, but at what stage
you don't think ethics guides them in their actions?
But hold on. One stage there was a sort of this thing called accountability. You fell on your sword if you lied to Parliament. You fell on your sword if you did the wrong thing. You know, like Profumo and all this. Now, Boris Johnson just seems to be like, I can go to a party when people are dying. The rage that's out there. Like, did I listen to Talkback on Tuesday, and I listened to quite a lot of stuff on the radio. The anger, my mother was dying when Boris Johnson was having a party. My wife, whatever, I heard all the stories, and they were sincere and all that. And they're just sort of saying, basically, like, we understand the rage, but I'm carrying on because this is very good. The power, we're looking after our friends. Jude, as well as that, wasn't there a finding on Tuesday that some of the contracts that were handed out to Tory party donors and their friends were totally illegal, which was covered up, got away as well.
Well, exactly. I think in ways, I could be a bit cynical. I think, for start, I think the only reason that Boris will continue as Prime Minister or be deposed as Prime Minister has got to do with how many seats will Tories be elected in next time around.
Yeah.
That's the long and short of it. I don't think
thing
ethics enters into it at all.
No, I think you're right. But they're 10 points. The latest poll has them 10 points behind. But
That's right.
But Jude, someone. No, let's boil this down. Jude, there's something seriously, telling that the Prime Minister could walk onto a party when anybody else, the cops in London were breaking up parties other places. People were actually arrested. People were fined for having parties. And the secretary sent out a we are hosting a party and bring your own booze. The Prime Minister's there for 25 minutes, and then he comes in with this absolute fairy tale that it was a work stew. Now, I don't know, Jude, I worked in the Derry Journal for over 30 years, and not once did we bring in booze and sandwiches, not during the day. That was a work stew. I don't know how it can become a work stew.
They do things differently in Number 10 than they do in Shipquay Street.
Yeah, and if the Brits buy that, if the British electorate buy that, God bless them, they get everything they deserved.
Yeah, but a very interesting thing I thought in terms of presentation of this, because so much depends on how the media presents something. The thing that really, I think, annoyed an awful lot of people, of course, was where they had to be isolated from their loved ones when they were dying. But this picture of Queen Elizabeth sitting the night before the funeral of her husband, a lonely figure. Now, that was a staged picture. She knew her picture was being taken. She was told to sit there, and they took it. And that's the thing that really got up the noses of many British people. That hot, poor, lonely woman, and then these buggers. Meanwhile, back at Number 10, we're having a party and we're dancing.
But I know I'll never get this. I've seen some of these royalists come on, Jude, and there's something seriously wrong in your mentality that you can see. That this royal family means so much to you. Jude, you're insane if you anybody believes in a royal family and 2022 that these people are born superior and they're all the rest. God Almighty, Jude, good luck to their wit.
Well, I just thought that maybe. Although we're throwing this as the heartlessness of allowing dancing and singing and boozing while people are being locked down and while the Queen is mourning and lost her husband.
Their children dying.
I just think that's a bit maybe sort of missing the point. I would say that.
Why is it missing the point, Jude?
Well, I think a far greater crime would be if the British government hadn't seen to it that the best possible protection equipment was available to frontline healthcare workers.
Yeah.
Now that was the fact of the matter, and in fact, I think still, I don't believe they're really given the proper protection. Because I was talking to my daughter, who's a doctor, and she was saying there's a space. There's FFP2
or something.
2 and 3, and anything short of that is vulnerable. You really, a lot of these masks that people put on, and fancy ones with little designs on them with a Union Jack or whatever, many of them are really ineffective. And in terms of the hospitals throughout Britain, the government were responsible. The Minister for Health was responsible for ensuring the safety of those workers.
Yeah,
and I think he put their lives at risk.
And Jude, what the number of Tory benefactors who got massive contracts? Like that, there's got to be at least an investigation into the possibility of corruption.
Oh yeah, I couldn't agree more. Right, Pat, we're trying the patience of our both our viewers at this stage.
But anyway, Jude, just before you go, know the saga. This week we had Boris. We had what do you call it? But Djokovic, the Australian Prime Minister this evening has ruled that he's going to be deported. Where and it looks like it now. I presume his lawyers will appeal that. But
Yeah.
his name is Alex Hawke. I presume he might be the son of Bob Hawke, who was the former prime minister. This evening has decided that his visa will be rescinded, and he's doing it. I wrote it down on health and good order and on the public interest.
Are you seeing that with some disdain, or are you approving it?
I am totally approve of it. Jude, I have quite a few friends in Australia, and they were going bananas. And I mean, Melbourne has had one of the strictest lockdowns in the world. And here was this guy, because he's number one tennis, the guy, he's unvaccinated. He's by the looks of it, either he said I misspoke in terms of he made a number of errors on his application, and he said my people did this and so on. He apparently tested positive and went out and did an interview with somebody. So, Jude, you know, the anti-vax brigade, the arrogance of them never ceases to amaze me.
Well, this guy is being caught this time. I like the point too that he made. It showed how angry I think it showed how angry the Australian people were that they revoked his visa on the grounds of public order.
Yeah.
In other words, if they hadn't, there would have been bloody riots. And actually, I'd imagine there would have been violence on the streets because the Serb contingent in Australia were outside his hotel chanting their support for him.
Yeah, Jude, that's not reflective of the ordinary Australian.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
They are said we have had to. We have been locked down tighter than a screw for a long time, and this guy just waltzes in. Do you think the rules don't apply to you?
Yeah. I never liked him. I never liked the look of him. That was enough. Okay, Pat. Thank you very much.